Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast Made to Game. Now, those of you who have tuned in before may have noticed that there is a name change. Where it was called Married to Gaming, we have decided to change it to Made to Game. And where Adam did used to have multiple guests, it's now going to be the two of us. Because it turns out we really like talking about games with each other. Go on, Adam, explain a bit more about what your plans are.
So when I came up with the Married to Gaming name, I just thought to myself, oh, what would be a good format, a good way to get people talking about the games they love, but also not commit to what is their favourite, which is why the something old, something new thing worked quite well. And I think we've decided we're still going to do a few of those with the odd guest and that kind of thing. But we really enjoyed the Shadow of the Tomb Raider deep dive so much that we thought, well, why don't we just do another one? And then that got me thinking about the overall format, and I decided that I wanted to change the name to something that was a bit broader and didn't kind of pin us into that format. And here we are.
So, seeing as the last one we did was a game that I'd recently played through and a game that meant a lot to me, we thought we'd do one that means a lot to you, Adam. So, you tell me what game it is we're picking.
At Christmas, Father Christmas brought us a PS5, and I got PlayStation Plus Premium, and the first game I played on was Spider-Man Miles Morales. I didn't know what to expect from it. I hadn't played the original Spider-Man game, and I just thought I'll give this a blast. Like, I like Into the Spider-Verse, and I like Spider-Man in general. And I'd heard really good things when we did the episode with Slack Jeff about the first one, and I love the PS1 one, so I thought, why not? I dived into it and was just hooked immediately. It was so much fun to play. Really, really like bright and breezy and airy and fast, and makes you feel like a good gamer. And the story's really compelling. Yeah, just really wanted to talk about it. So, how are we going to start this off, eh?
Well, you mentioned Into the Spider-Verse earlier, which I know this is a gaming podcast, but that film, can I just say, that film blew me away when it first came out. When I saw it, I remember I hadn't seen it in the cinema. Some friends showed it to me later, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, Spider-Man film, and I went away going, that is one of my favourite movies I've ever seen. Like, it was so good. I haven't seen the second one. You've seen the second one. You went to see it without me. But the first one, it was kind of like, I remember saying it felt like a video game, which is
very much so, yeah.
I feel like it really catapulted Miles Morales into the public eye, because that film was so well done. Like, the animation of that film was gorgeous. The story was great. Like, the music was great. So many things it kind of set up, essentially, for this game. I think there's quite a lot of comic book stuff. They've managed to make quite a lot of good games, like the Batman Arkham series was like a thing on its own with Batman. And so the Spider-Man games have always have been really popular. And I feel like those films really set the stage for these, like, kind of, for Miles Morales to kind of really start taking up the mantle of Spider-Man.
Yeah, they must have had a plan as well. I think if you're one of the people at Sony and you've got Spider-Man still, before Marvel are like clawing it back or whatever, and you've got this character that was so beloved by the comic book audience, Miles is very, very popular with like younger readers, and it was a really successful character that they tried to launch. Combined with the fact that, you know, in the modern age, you're trying to whitewash a lot of stuff from superhero movies to everything else. He's a great character, and he's really likable, and he's actually quite a good role model as well. He's fighting crime, and he's happy to be doing it, and he's not particularly dark or broody. He's not excessively violent, although in the game he kind of is. We'll come to that. But I think as a character, he captures the bright and happy feel that I grew up with Peter Parker Spider-Man really well. And they've made this character that's really likable, and then put him in this scenario where it seems like he knows everyone in the game already, like everyone's a member of his family or something. But that's kind of how comic books go. Like, the Peter Parker Spider-Man was kind of the same.
So tell me about the gameplay, first of all. What was it about the gameplay of this Miles Morales game that really caught you?
But the simplicity with which you could navigate the city and swing, and then you start doing tricks, and it's so effortless, and he just floats for so long in the air, and he pauses and does all these moves and that kind of thing. The fact that that is the game mechanic that the entire thing is built around is, I think, the key to its success. In fact, when you watched me play it in the first instance, you were kind of counting off all the times where the web would shoot and probably like have nothing to latch onto.
Oh yeah, I was.
Stuff like that. Because the combat's great, the combat's really, really fluid, and you can execute lots of combos, or you can hide and you can just pull loads of people up, get them all tied up and out of the way. So you can kind of fight how you like to fight. There was one thing that I noticed in particular, which once I got used to it was really good, and that's the fact that unless you really take the time to aim, just by pressing the L2 button and the R2 buttons, you just kind of randomly go whoop up into the sky and land anywhere on the side of a building. You don't really have too much control, and in a way that reflects really well the nature of Spider-Man, like the twitchiness of Spider-Man and the twitchiness of spiders. You just press some buttons and you're gone, and you're out of danger. And the game has put you somewhere, and then you can kind of look around and make a decision about what you're going to do. Are you going to escape, or are you going to like target this member of the underground and pin them to the side of a wall to use later, or are you going to go stealth and pick people off and that kind of thing? So that's what worked for me. Obviously there's story missions and there's different types of missions and there's rescuing a cat at one point, but fundamentally just the fact that you're traversing the landscape as Spider-Man, you feel like Spider-Man. You feel quite skilled, and when you pull off the like gymnastics moves in the air and do the spins and
I love a game that makes you feel skilled yourself. That's so great when they manage to do that.
And you're just pressing square and left and doing
Yeah.
a spin, but it gives you the time. Like they've recognized that once you've launched yourself into the air, you want to stay there for a bit and play. There are so many games targeted at adults that are very much focused on power progression, level progression, unlocks, upgrades. I'm a big fan of roguelike games. They have a lot of that. And you sort of feel like you could play this game without unlocking any of the upgrades. It would be really hard by the end, especially some of the later boss fights. You feel like you're playing, not like playing a computer game, but like just playing. Very often I would be swinging around Central Park and a crime would be announced, and I'm on the way to a really significant story mission, and I'm going, no, I want to stop the crime. And you go over and you just beat up a load of Roxxon employees or whatever. The citizens of New York will say, thank you, Spider-Man. You feel really immersed in it, and it makes you really happy. It feels really good.
Roxanne, are they the bad guys in the game that you're fighting? Oh, I'll take this moment to say there will be spoilers in this podcast.
I'll try not to like mad spoil it, but yeah, that will
Yeah.
probably be. I mean, anyone who's seen the movie, there are a lot of parallels with the movies anyway, but it's not the same Miles as in the movie. So, sorry, Roxxon are the evil corporation, and Simon Krieger is
Gotta have
like
one of them.
Simon Krieger is like Mark Zuckerberg. They've made it a very charismatic Zuckerberg parallel guy, and the Underground are, as they sound, this group of rebels who power themselves with like programmable matter, and they've got big fists and shields and swords and cool guns that they can like, materialize into their hands, and they're purple, Roxxon are red, and that's kind of how it's coded. Purple and red are big colors in the Miles Morales universe. If you've seen Into the Spider-Verse, you'll see that a lot, and I actually think I got the sense from the game that the Underground are a big deal, like in the Miles Morales canon in the comics.
I don't know much about the Miles Morales comics. I know a little bit about the Peter Parker Spider-Man comics. I know more probably about from when I watched The Amazing Spider-Man as a kid, which from what I remember was just a lot of lizard. I'm sure there was other characters, but I just remember the lizard all the time.
So a big part of the whole thing of Miles Morales is that it's going back to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The game is sort of set, Miles's home base is set in Harlem, right, which is a part of New York that traditionally, like, the idea is that it's underdeveloped, but actually now it's very gentrified, it's very expensive to live in, but there are a lot of members of the community in Harlem that have lived there for generation upon generation upon generation, and it was traditionally a very poor area. So you have this mix of people like the nouveau riche and then the people who've lived there for a long time. And Miles is supposed to represent those people, like people from black communities, Latino communities. His mum's Latino, I was going to say his husband, his dad's black, and his dad's a police officer, and his mum is campaigning to become the local councillor for Harlem to protect the residents against encroachment from corporate entities trying to build like experimental energy supply that's dangerous and that kind of thing. So Miles is the representative of that older community that have been there for a long time. Lots of immigrants from all over the world, but like second, third generation. So like their grandparents came to live in New York City, but they're just from there, and trying to make that work. But he's all about, stretching beyond your boundaries and not being told that you and your community aren't worth anything, and standing up for yourself and seeing the value in your heritage and all of that stuff. So that kind of thing is wonderful, and it is expressed throughout the story The thing that you noticed is the way that the NPCs are programmed to behave in the game by
I like
comparison to
this.
something like Grand Theft Auto. So do you want to explain what I'm talking about?
Now, I'm quite fond in my personal life, in my working life, talking about people's intelligence and like the general intelligence of the public, and how often it's viewed quite negatively. However, I kind of always say that's not really the case because you are the public, I am the public, we are the public. There's all different kinds of people who make up the public, and in a lot of films and games and media in general, the general public have been given a bit of a bad rep. Like, then generally they're just kind of sort of treated as if they're panicky morons. They just and like as soon as they see something bad happening, they're gonna go, "Oh my god!" Like they'd be like, "Oh my god, Spider-Man, call the police!" or something like that. They wouldn't respond well to it.
Yeah.
Now in this game, what I really liked is like Miles kind of like zips down in his full Spider-Man gear, and they're just like, "Oh hey, Spider-Man." It's like, "Hey, Spider-Man, how you doing? Thanks so much for helping me the other day. Oh, did you know that like so and so next door like just had a baby? Isn't that lovely?" They're just
Yeah.
like they just talk to him like he's a normal person, which I feel is a good representative of how normal people actually are. Because of course, each individual person has a story, and I think they also did really well to kind of show the cohesiveness of this neighborhood. They're all
Yeah.
there. They're all looking out for each other. And they don't know who Spider-Man is. They don't know he's Miles Morales, but like, they can obviously tell that he's trying to do good. And so seeing all these kind of random members of the public in the way that game portrayed them, I really enjoyed, because I wonder sometimes if some game and media developments feel like they might feel some responsibility towards the fact that so many people now have a bit of a disdain towards the general public. So therefore kind of trying to rectify that in a way and like make it a bit more realistic to how it is in real life.
There's definitely been, I don't know if that's going to change soon or whatever post COVID, but there's definitely been this pervasive mood in gaming and movies that, the public are stupid, other people are stupid. Not me, not you, not the people that I know, just those people. And of course,
Yeah.
those people are comprised of other small pockets of people who are quite intelligent, quite insightful, quite kind, quite thoughtful, quite friendly, quite funny, quite silly. All those little pockets of people, that's what makes the public up. And yes, you get the odd asshole. Yes, you do.
Yes, you
Or you
do.
get the odd very nice person having a bad year. And they're just behaving like a monster because they need therapy or whatever. But generally, like a
Yeah.
lot of people are really good, and I think they represented that really well. Um, by contrast, one of the things I also loved that you also loved was the representation of J. Jonah Jameson in this one.
Oh
So in
yeah.
this one, J. Jonah Jameson, instead of being a newspaper editor, which I think he still is, but he has a podcast, and there are two rival podcasts that Miles tunes into in his suit. His suit is all very techified. One is the Danny Cast, which is a person who is like from another neighborhood in New York. I don't think it's ever really specified. I don't think she's from Harlem or not, but she is. I think she's of Latino origin, and she's played by Ashley Birch again. She always seems to come up
Oh
in our
yes. Maybe
yeah.
she'll just be. Maybe this will turn into the Ashley Birch podcast.
So on the Danny Cast, you get a lot of post mission feedback. Residents were really happy today when a drug bust was, or like an overturned lorry was moved from the road, or whatever, or a cat was rescued, and she tells you all about that. And then you get the J. Jonah Jameson, which is the same story, just from his like shouty, rah, 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 Spider-Man must be put in jail kind of.
God damn that Spider-Man! Irresponsible.
I don't think J.K. Simmons played him in this, but
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was.
whoever that voice actor is, they did a heck of a good job because it sounded just like him.
Yeah. Well, I like that you brought up the podcasts, right? Because I mean, granted, I haven't really kept up to date with like how with how like comic book heroes in how they're portrayed in the games or the current comics are. I haven't kept up to date with what they're doing with them these days, but Spider-Man seems to have done a really good job of kind of really updating Spider-Man into how they think he would be now. Like Miles Morales is this new Spider-Man. He's young. He's a teenager. So they've got him listening to podcasts, which is what people do today, just like you who are listening to us right now. So I just like how and they've really technified his suit, like you said. And one thing I want to bring up is like Miles Morales is really nice. Like he's a really
Yeah,
nice kid. He's really
yeah, he's
nice. He just wants to do what's right and he cares about people. And now I feel like that is a much better representative of teenagers today than the idea of like, they just all want to go and listen to rock music and take drugs and hit people, And I'm just like, I've worked with teenagers. I've worked in education, and you've worked with teenagers as well. That wasn't what I got from working with teenagers. Most of them are actually quite nice and just kind of want to sort of do all right by people. And I feel like I feel like actually they captured that in Peter Parker as well. Like, I think he was always, like, really nice. Like, he was always trying to do good. And I feel like Miles is, once again, keeping that mantle of just trying to trying to be nice, trying to do the right thing. He's very polite. Peter Parker was always as well. But, like, like if he runs into someone, he's like, sorry, mister, sorry, sir.
oh yeah, he's always like bundling past people and going, oh, and he's doing that when he's swinging as well. Actually, if you swing low enough, he'll apologise to people, and because all the people duck and go, whoa, was that Spider-Man? And he goes, oh, sorry. And I mean, this is what you get when Sony makes something, because they got so much money and so much experience with making movies and that kind of thing. So yeah, I wanted to, before we forget about it, I have to talk about the suits. We were talking on Shadow of the Tomb Raider about how Lara Croft's makers came under fire for focusing on her outfits. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a perfect example of how a male protagonist's outfits are incredibly important. Yeah, when you unlock a new one, you get like a mod upgrade that gives you a technical ability, but who cares about that? They look amazing. You start with this kind of rubbish one that like Peter Parker gives you, because Peter Parker's gone on holiday. That's the thing. He's going on a working holiday with MJ over to Paris.
Good for him. He deserves it.
Is it Paris, or it's somewhere in Europe? It might even be a
one.
fake. It might even be a fake city. I can't remember. But MJ talks the language, so she's been sent over there, and then Peter's gone over as her like photographer or whatever. So they're out of the picture. He's on the phone to you a lot and that kind of thing to check in and be the mentor. And it's a really positive relationship. He's really supportive of Miles. He sets up all these training things and he gives him his first suit. The first suit looks like a bad version of Peter's suit. It's the blue and red kind of motif, but the neck doesn't fit properly. It's all ruffled up and stuff. And then very quickly you unlock another suit that is more the characteristic black Miles Morales suit. But then throughout the game, you just unlock suit after suit after suit. If you're listening, I'm going to give you a 5-second warning. There is a spoiler coming up, and it's a big one. If you don't want to hear it, if you want to go play the games, please press pause now. That was your warning. So Miles Morales' uncle, just like in Into the Spider-Verse, is the Prowler, Aaron Morales, Uncle Aaron. And you near the end of the game, you unlock the Prowler spider suit, and it just looks cool. It's purple and black with like gold all over it. It's got glowing green eyes. I think I unlocked it shortly before I fought him, because your uncle's trying to stop you from. He's trying to protect you, right? He's trying to trap you and stop you from going and fighting Roxxon. And you end up having to fight him. And I was fighting against him, I think, in the Prowler suit. But at the end of the game, you unlock this hoodie one. It's just a hoodie with the Spider-Man logo on it, with a backpack, and in the backpack is a cat, ginger cat, called Spider-Man, wearing a Spider-Man hat. And when you do the slow motion takedowns at the end of the combo where you've charged up, you kind of get this over-the-shoulder view, and then the cat comes out of the backpack and smacks the enemy in the face. And it's awesome. What are some other ones? Are there any that you remember? Because I can rattle them all off actually now.
Yeah, because I remember when I'd come over and you'd be playing that game and you'd just be like, oh, I just want to show you all the new suits I got.
Yeah. I was so excited. Like, have a look at this one. Have a look at this one.
Yes, you were very excited about the suits. I remember some weird, big, chunky orange one. Do you remember that one? And you were kind of like, oh, this one's a bit weird. Yeah.
Oh, no, that was the Crimson Cowl. That's the only one I didn't unlock, actually. Yeah, it's like a sort of stealth one. So there's one where you have his backpack and blazer from his school, and then you have like a hood that goes over the top. There's one where you had like crazy trousers, these red and black. I want to say they're like a
Oh,
Minecraft
the
camo
camo
pattern
ones. Yeah.
trousers with a really cool jacket. Um, so and he's got like cool trainers and or sneakers trainers, whatever. Um, all of that stuff, they just put so much energy into getting the fashion right. It's all so, every single suit is so unique. There's one that's like the classic black and gold. There's one that is the animated Into the Spider-Verse suit, and it's actually done in like 2 frame animation, so he moves more jerkily and stuff like that. um that was such an amazing part of it. And I've just talked myself into remembering something we definitely said we'd discuss, which
Oh, go on.
is, so Miles Morales, 17 years old, science genius, kind to members of the community, even a bit sympathetic towards the underground. We
Hmm.
didn't do a tally, but I reckon I probably booted over 100 people to their deaths from the top of a skyscraper.
I was going to ask you about that actually. Yes. Now, how
Yeah,
many people do you think, considering his no
they just
kill
go,
rule,
"Wah!" Yeah.
how many
No, he
people did
doesn't
you
have a
kick
no-kill
off the
rule.
edge of a skyscraper?
I don't think he has like a
Does he
no-kill
not?
rule. I think that's just like Batman or
I'm sure
something.
he must do though. Spider-Man. I don't think Spider-Man kills people. I don't know. I don't know. You can always let us know if Spider-Man has no kill rule.
The thing is, right, is like, if you were going to go into a world building analysis, which is something that we sometimes do, what I would say if I was the creator, I'd go, no, no, no. When he kicks them off, you don't see it because the camera turns around, but he shoots a web and they get tied to the side of the building. That's gonna.
Oh
I
yes.
definitely verified it. Like, I did a Venom jump and an airborne strike. I did a Venom strike, launched somebody about like 50 meters into the middle of the sky, and watched them drop to the ground. But whatever, it was still pretty cool.
Yes. I wonder how. I wonder if they discussed that. I wonder if they were like, what somebody might have said that in the studio and been like, "Ooh, maybe we need to like have him like shoot some web after anyone that you actually like kick off a building." And they were like, "Yeah, good idea. We don't have the time though, so we'll be fine."
Something I wanted to talk about, we're talking about like the no kill rule and Batman. I was thinking of Batman earlier. One of the things I really like about Miles, and about how that character is representative of how we deal with things now, like in the modern age. So, if I mean, this is a bigger spoiler than than the one I just said, but basically, the end of the first game, Miles Morales' dad is killed. In the main Spider-Man story. I haven't played it, but it gives you a synopsis at the beginning, and a big part of what's going on in the, let's say, like the off hours of Spider-Man Miles Morales, is him interacting with his best friend and his mother and members of his family and his close friends, and essentially processing his father's loss in a way that is a stark contrast to Batman. Um, Anyone unfamiliar with Batman? Batman is a DC superhero who is a billionaire who loses his parents as a child and is not recommended any form of therapy, does not become well adjusted, and uses his resources to go and beat up the underprivileged. Now,
Travels across the world to become a ninja
yeah,
to
yeah,
come back, and no one tells him, look, look, I understand why you want to go and do this, but let's take you to the hospital instead.
yeah, let's get you some support because you clearly need it. Whereas obviously the whole message in Miles Morales is all about the importance of family, not necessarily your blood relatives, but like your entire kind of adopted family, your community in a sense, whether that's blood relatives or friends, or friends of your parents or whatever, and engaging with those people and discussing the way you feel, and discussing the person that you've lost, and talking about the good things that they brought into the world. And there are very few people out there who haven't experienced loss in some way, and it's very important to find your way through it. And I think when I talk about Miles, not just the game Spider-Man and its kind of visual beauty, but Miles as a character being light and upbeat and fresh, it's that actually. He's just dealt with this crushing loss, and the way that he's dealing with it is that he talks to his mom on the phone, and they discuss his father, and she sets things up to remind him of his father, and they have this very healthy, but not perfect, it's still sometimes tense, kind of relationship and method of coping with that loss. And I thought that was a really powerful thing to put into a game, especially something that was going to sell so well and circulate so heavily, because they could very easily have turned Miles into a brooding badass monster. They can do what they want
Yes.
with him, really. He's a new enough character, certainly to the game and film world, that they can take him in any direction. Maybe in the comic books
Yes.
it's a bit more established. But yeah, I really wanted to bring that
Absolutely.
up.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, well, the way like these sorts of heroes have been for so long. Like when we were growing up, I grew up through the 90s, you grew up through the 80s, and a lot of up until like the early 2000s, a lot of the heroes that we'd see on TV and in video games, they were these kind of dark, brooding people who did it alone. They went and did it alone. And it's sort of given out this false idea, people would be like, you can't understand my pain, and it's sort of given out this false idea to a lot of people that that's how you cope. You go off and you be strong and cope with it on your own because no one else can understand what you've been through.
Yeah.
And, that's been, we're facing this mental health crisis in our society at the moment. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But, like, I don't think that sort of thing in our media has helped. The way this has been portrayed is like, rather than having Miles retreat inside himself and just being like, you don't understand my pain, to everyone, and then go and brood somewhere and feel better by beating up bad guys, he kind of actually goes to his friends and his family, because that's how we as humans are built to be. We are built to cope by relying on people. So this unhealthy message of doing everything on your own has been really bad for people. And I'm really glad to see, like, the popular games, and you see it in movies now as well, like just that the heroes are relying on their friends and their family and the people around them, and it's just such a healthier message, and I'm so pleased to see it.
Yeah, I thought it was really worth highlighting. And I think, just talking about sort of mental health crisis, we're going to talk about suicide for a little bit. Like, I used to be in the events industry with a lot of men actually, just in general. There aren't many women in the sort of backstage worlds, certainly not doing what I did, stage lighting and stage building and that sort of thing. And it's not necessarily depression that gets them, but it's like drug and alcohol dependency. And then, of course, it's having friendship groups that kind of are also living in that world. So it's very hard to socialize in any way without drugs and alcohol. To see the mainstream media putting out these healthy, happy individuals was quite refreshing. So yeah, unlike Batman, who's been through all this stuff and makes beating up poor people his identity, Miles Morales has not done that. He's not going around beating up poor people and making it his identity. He is going around beating up poor people and launching them off the side of skyscrapers, but that's not who he is. And I think that's the important, that's the important message.
I like that he's got a really good relationship with his mother, because a lot of the time, usually it's the mum who dies or something, and like that kind of pushes the hero forward. But usually it's kind of like you don't normally see that. Like, you haven't seen a lot in media of young men looking to their female parent, like the female counterpart parent, to support. Like,
Yeah,
usually either they haven't got parents at all to look up to, or they're going to their father. Like, so
yeah.
seeing this really healthy relationship between like a mother and a son, and like him leaning on his mother for help and his mother for support, that was really nice. I really liked that.
Yeah, I did too. Okay, so let's talk about internally the story rather than the broader messages. What the
Okay.
story is, a brief overview, is that Miles is looking after New York while Peter's away. A simple premise, and it's the Christmas holidays. The whole thing is set in the festive season, so your Christmases, your Hanukkahs, all of that
Which
stuff.
is nice because you played it over Christmas.
We did. I guess they realised a lot of people would be getting PlayStations for Christmas. So he's looking after New York himself, and he's spending a lot of time catching up with old friends and family. He has a friend that he grew up with called Finn, and she is a tech genius, just like he is. And they won some science award for their energy converter. And it sets Finn up quite well for when you finally get the reveal of the main baddie, who is this absolutely badass high tech woman who's got programmable matter arms and a big shield and can like launch into the sky, and is the leader of the underground. Their face mask comes away because you overload it with electricity, and it's Finn. So your main rival, your main villain and enemy and bad guy is your best friend, or bad girl, I
A
should say.
young woman of color, which I thought was quite good. You don't normally see young women of color in like main villain roles, which was pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't even consider that. The thing is that she's more intelligent than Miles. She's cooler than Miles. She's just got a lot more going for her. Her fatal flaw is that she is absolutely furious with this corporation called Roxxon for this substance that they've invented or discovered called Newform. And what Newform is a special element device that they've made that generates energy, lots of energy, and it turns out it's incredibly dangerous. Her brother, who was kind of a mentor to her and Miles, is made very ill by the substance, and then her and the brother, without Miles's involvement, are working to take Roxxon down. Her brother is killed, and it just sends her over the edge. So she starts to become this kind of underground freedom fighter rebel type, but of course sinks further and further and further into justifications for crime, and she starts to become quite powerful, and she starts to become quite evil. Miles throughout the story is trying and trying and trying to persuade her to give up that life and to do things his way and forgive people and not kill them. He also doesn't want her to become a killer. So he's just working so hard all the way through it. If you wanted to, as Miles, you could absolutely just annihilate her. You know, she's not as powerful as Spider-Man. Near the end of the game, she does become almost your equal because she kind of upgrades her powers. When you eventually tell her that you're Spider-Man, she's furious with you, and there's a lot of kind of cross purposes and crossed wires and stuff. But ultimately, in quite a realistic way, like a lot of friendships and relationships, and they resolve the conflict and they talking whilst they're like up on the tops of buildings and that kind of thing, because she can basically fly. And Miles has almost won her over, and then at the very last minute she decides to go crazy and just destroy everything, not realizing that if she destroys this power generator it'll wipe out Harlem. And then Miles tries to tell her it will. He actually just gives her a very concise, very clear explanation of the problem. If you blow up the power reactor, it will blow up the city, or it will blow up the neighborhood. And she just goes, I don't believe you. And they carry on fighting, and you're like, no. And then you have to fight Finn. So this relationship with the enemies is, of course, really good. Because at one point you fight Rhino, and it's like, oh, it's Rhino. Here we go.
He's the first person you fight in the game, isn't he?
Yeah, but you don't really care about Rhino. It's just like an interesting cameo, really, Rhino. But like, you care about Finn, you care about Prowler. Prowler's a bit like Catwoman and Batman, I suppose. It's just kind of like, is he a goodie? Is he a baddie? He's more like a mercenary for hire, but he's also a thief rather than a killer. And he sometimes works for the goodies, he sometimes helps Miles, but he sometimes takes money from Roxxon. You can't really trust him. And there's this great scene at the end where all of the people who've seen Miles's face, like his mother and his friend, and there's some other members of the community that have seen his face, and then someone, I think it's a reporter or someone, runs up at the end and goes, did you see who it was? Did you see who he was? And they just turn and they just go, they cover for him while he swings away because he's absolutely trashed after the fight, and they just go, he's our Spider-Man, meaning the community. And then in the kind of post-game bit, you go up to the mural that they were painting of Peter Parker Spider-Man, and then Miles is next to him, finally.
Yes, because at the very beginning of the game, he goes past the mural and he's like, oh, do you want to put that new Spider-Man up there too? And the person's like, nah. Most stories in the world have been told before somewhere. And, like, so you'll read things and see things and just be like, oh, this is a similar ending to that, etc. But, and I would say that, like, the end of the story isn't completely unpredictable. However, because the story is so good and you're so attached to the characters, that doesn't matter. Like, it's still very emotional. It's still really good. You're still very compelled. Most people, when you get to a certain age, if you're into stories, if you're into books, and you're into like high level storyline games, and you get to your 30s and 40s, you've seen a lot of the sort of storylines that you can have. You've seen a lot of them, but it's kind of fine it's okay to see them again and again and again when the characters are really compelling and really believable, even if you've seen that kind of ending like a load of times. You're just like, oh, I'm still going to cry, even though I saw this coming a mile away. I think that's always a mark of a good story and a good game, if it's like a predictable ending, but it still gets you.
If we're going to just have a little bit of a nod towards literary analysis, which it wouldn't be the Made to Game podcast if we didn't do a bit of that. One thing that's really significant when you're analysing a text, analysing a game, analysing a story, is that those things that you've listed, that only forms one layer. That is just comprehension. That's just the events. A story is so much more than just the events it depicts and the sequence and the timeline. It's also about the context of the character, like what do they represent. And in this case, I think a big focus is talking about New York City as a positive place to be, not a horrible place to be, being grounded in a place that's so huge, and also representing your community. That's the message. So the behavior of the character as they move through the story, their highs and their lows, when they're treating people well and they're treating people bad. There are actually some moments where I don't know if it's deliberate or not, or maybe just perhaps me reflecting on it from my own perspective, but where he talks to his friend Genki, and Genki works tirelessly, works his ass off to help Miles. He's hacking into computers, he's hacking into high security facilities, he's making apps to install into Miles's suit that seem to work perfectly every time with no testing. Like,
No glitches,
Genki's
no
a
errors.
genius. And Miles always says thanks. He goes, thanks, Genki. But then, like, Genki's been up all night. He's also doing his schoolwork. I think he's got a job. He's living in your apartment, helping out your mum, and all this stuff, covering for you, lying for you, and also he's in danger. Like, if you're Spider-Man's friend, you're in danger. And there were some moments where I was like, Miles, you're not actually treating Genki that nicely. Like, you're just taking everything he's giving. You're not giving a huge amount back. So that kind of resonated with me. But anyway, sorry. So yeah, the broader kind of context of the story is not just about how it's grounded, but also it's about the world in which it is constructed, which is our world. So this is a story put together basically for people who can afford PlayStations, right? So it's not, the people that they're expecting to see this story are not the same people that would see a YouTube video for free, and they can't afford a PlayStation. Maybe they will. I suppose they'll watch playthroughs or whatever. But Sony are probably thinking about who's going to see this story and putting a message out there into the world for the owners of PlayStations, probably. And those are people who can afford to pay a few $100s or a few £100 or whatever, or euros, to get hold of this technology, have a home to put it in that's secure enough that they don't have to worry about it being stolen and all of that. And you have to consider that as well. If the writers are being commissioned by Sony's production team to write this story, you have to consider the intended audience. And the intended audience are people that I would consider to be of privilege. If you've got a house and you've got a stable roof over your head and you can afford to allocate money to buy a PlayStation 5, then...
And the game.
You are not dirt poor. I think so many stories targeted at that audience are nasty. They're either horror stories or they're stories of brutality or they're crime stories. There's a lot more out there like that than there is this kind of positive, upbeat message of the Miles Morales story. And even though it has tragic loss and even though it has sacrifice, all of those things are celebrated. There's nobody that is a martyr in that story or loses their life in that story or whatever, that it's not in some way celebrated and they aren't looked upon fondly for their sacrifice. And all of those positive moral messages that have so much meaning in a world that can often feel so upside down, and you can feel so alone. And just saying to people who've got money and are doing okay, what you need to be doing is you need to be looking to your community and you need to be talking to the person next to you. That's the message of Miles Morales. It's not about being a superhero. It's not about going the extra mile and putting yourself out there and destroying yourself, which is what Miles can do because he's Spider-Man. It's about staying grounded, ironically, considering that Spider-Man is so airborne, but the theme of staying grounded, staying close to the people that you care about, the people that you know, the faces that respect you and recognise you, even the people that chastise you and don't always necessarily like you, just the people that will have your back when things go wrong. It's the people who know you that will do that for you, and the people that that you'll do the same for. That's the message, and that's what the story's all about. All the big lofty moments, in a way, are kind of just cinematic set pieces to go in a AAA title. The real story is those moments where you swing really low and you nearly hit someone in the head and they go, hey.
I love how you said earlier, like, let's get away from like the deep messages now and actually talk about the story. And you've gone straight back to talking about the deep messages. The fact that you keep bringing that back up shows how much that meant to you. And if that meant a lot to you, I feel like that's going to have meant a lot to all the other people playing the game. And I think that's important because I think a lot of older gamers who are like my age or your age potentially are going to dismiss the Spider-Man games as thinking like, oh, that's more for like teenagers.
I would say if you're listening to this and you're perhaps an older gamer or somebody who would normally dismiss Spider-Man, it's really fun. Just go give it a look and see if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's nice how much this message of positivity is meant to you, and I think that how much you like that is a testament to kind of what a lot of audiences do want to see now. Like, I think there are a lot. I think a lot of people are fed up of just hearing about doom and gloom and having nihilistic ideas and, like, the kind of thing like, oh well,
Yeah.
everyone's stupid anyway, and the
Yeah.
world is terrible and everything's just awful and no one's going to get anything they want in life. Like, that was cool when we were younger, but I think even the younger generations now are like fed up with that. Enough. Let's not make life about that. So I think, obviously everyone has their own individual interests, but I think I do feel like your view on that and your interest in the positive message is actually a testament to kind of what the wider community are wanting to see from games and films and movies and stuff these days.
Yeah, I think people are ready to see the world brightened up, and I think this video game is definitely a step in that direction. It's a huge step. In fact, it's a leap, a thwip, and a swing in that direction, and
Oh
probably a
dear.
front pike.
I know. So I feel like we've covered a lot of things we wanted to talk about, but I've got one question for you that I think is a good question to like end a lot of our deep dive games on.
Right, sure, yeah.
Tell me what bits of the game frustrated you, so you can have an opportunity to vent.
Oh, okay, fine. So the things, the bits of the game that frustrated me were some of the stealth sections where you have to go and get like a box of tech parts to upgrade your suit, and if you miss it at the time, you have to go back and redo the whole mission. And I was
Oh,
like, give me the option to just find the box,
these are
please.
the bits of the game that just make you go.
Yeah.
"Rah!"
And there were a couple of like, but these are all kind of side missions. There are a couple of side missions where you could potentially stealth the whole thing, but then as soon as you get seen, it just kicks off. And you can just pretty much get through every combat. I was playing it on the normal difficulty, and then you can pretty much get through every combat with like these awesome combos, which is great. But you rarely do you actually need to do the stealth. You can just wade in there, unless it's like one of those ones where, oh, you've been seen, the mission's over.
Yeah.
You've got the option to just bundle in there and just fight everyone. And of course, for somebody like me who prefers to do that anyway, I was making a real challenge for myself of trying to stealth through every single one. And then I'd get to about like 5 or 6 enemies left, and I'd go, oh, why am I doing this? And I'd just be like, yeah, ooh, I'd just dive in and go beat everyone up. Because you just, because the free flowing combat's so satisfying that it feels like you're wasting an opportunity when you're doing the stealth a little bit. These are good problems to have. Oh no, I know what it is. I know what the frustrating thing is.
Go on.
Oh, the swimming. Oh my god. You saw me do the swimming. He moves at about 1 inch per minute. He's so slow. And you're like, you're
Yes.
Spiderman. You're so like physically fit. What are you doing? And he's like, "Blub, blub, 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 blub." For
I
those of
remember
you
'cause
who
I
aren't
asked
watching the
you,
video
please
and have
go.
just got the audio on, that was me acting out the slowest swimming imaginable. I was like, what? What? This is Spider-Man. Like, come on. He can't dive or anything. He's just like on the surface of the water. And I know what it is. It's to discourage you from trying to leave the Manhattan Island. So once you're in the water, it just takes forever. And you made me go.
Yes.
You made me
I
go
did. No, I
out.
asked you. I said to you, "What happens when you?" I said, "Have you tried to leave the city right now?" I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, what
God.
happens? What
Why did
happens when
they
you
do
go?
that?
What happens when you go to the go?" Well, I didn't intend for you to swim. I just meant, but I was like, just what happens when you go across one of the bridges? Because I like to know what happens in games when you do that. Like, I
Yeah, I
really
know.
like
Yeah, yeah.
to see. And so you kind of went out, and it just basically goes, "You are leaving the playable area." I was like, "Oh, that what happens." Then you fell in the water and you swam back. That wasn't my fault.
Okay, well, I'm going to blame you anyway. And there's some cool fight moves where you can like pull the gun out of someone's hand, swing it around, and smack him in the head with it. And
Oh my god, the force of which you hit people in the head with their stuff or like a bin or something would, when I saw you
oh
kind
yeah,
of going bang, oh my goodness, that would crush them. That
yeah.
would absolutely
Well,
smash them to bits.
there's one little side mission that comes up quite a lot where Roxxon and the Underground are shooting at each other in the streets, and Roxxon have got a tank, and you go and you just rip the top of the tank off, the turret, the gun emplacement bit. You rip that off, you swing it around, you smash it down on someone's head. You're like, I don't think this guy's just being put in
No.
prison. I think he's going to need some serious
I think
medical
he is.
attention.
Yeah, he's going to be in a few bits. Yeah.
The only other frustrating thing was something that they did on purpose, and it's fine. The main villain, Simon Krieger, is such a marmy smarmhead, and there's so many opportunities where
Some mob head. You were going to swear there, and you stopped yourself, didn't you?
I don't know. No, it's just like Mr. Smarmy Marmalade. It's just like, oh, hey there. And it reminded me of, you might know the name of the character, but you know in The Simpsons when Homer goes to work for that supervillain,
Hank Scorpio. That's it.
Hank Scorpio. It was like that. It's like, this guy's clearly a supervillain. He's a supervillain. Just punch him that, you can tell. And he's just like, hey, oh hey. But then all the little MP3s that you can unlock when you do the Roxxon facility missions, at the end you get this MP3, and it's this like voice memo that Simon Krieger's put out to all the staff about how they're all getting ill, and he's like, remember, don't tell anybody or else something might happen to your family, and that kind of stuff. He's so evil, and you're just like, oh my god, how does no one see how evil he is? And he's obviously a commentary on like modern moguls like your Jeff Bezos and your Mark Zuckerberg and your Elon Musk and what's the other one? Just all rich people, even if they're philanthropists.
Yeah.
It's just, how did you get rich? You probably got rich by exploiting people. And Simon Krieger is just this charismatic, sort of handsome, extremely kind of well coiffed business tech entrepreneur, but they talk a lot about how he's not really very technically gifted at all. He's got a lab, and even Miles is like, what, Krieger has a lab? He's like, yeah, he doesn't really spend any time here because he's a salesman. He's not really the inventor of stuff. He just goes and finds these interesting patents and then does these aggressive corporate takeovers with other people's money. And he's a great supervillain, but he's so frustrating when he's on screen because you're just like, oh, everything about you. I just really just want to kick you off a skyscraper. And in the end, I think he gets arrested or something, and he's like kicking off, and he's disempowered by the time he's being arrested, but it's not satisfying enough.
He does get arrested, yeah.
You
You want to do it though.
Yeah, or you want to be the one to like tie him up and put him in prison or whatever it is.
Chuck
or,
him
like
into the water so he has to lob his way back.
Yeah.
Okay, so Miles Morales, positive points is how positive the game is overall. Negative points, the swimming's really annoying. There was that moment where you got stuck inside a building and you couldn't get out. Like, as in, that glitch.
That was the only glitch. That was the only glitch that I had the entire time. There was a crime going on, and it's a Roxxon helicopter has been hacked by the underground. You have to go and land on the helicopter. You talk to the pilot, and he goes, there's some antennas like jamming my signal. Can you go and deal with them? You scan the area, and then these 3 locations. You have 3 fights with these groups of underground. You like overload the antenna with electricity, and the helicopter can fly away. When I landed on the helicopter to talk to him, when he like assigned me the mission, Miles automatically jumps off the helicopter, but the helicopter had like clipped through a building, so I went inside this building that was completely transparent from the inside, but I was totally stuck in it. I couldn't get out.
You were just climbing on all the walls and the ceilings, so you couldn't get out. So you had to restart.
But as you know, I absolutely love glitches in games because I'm a gamer of the 80s and 90s. Because the glitches were so infrequent and the game was so buttery smooth all the other times, I was actually glad to finally have a glitch. I was like, look. I was like, look at this. Look I think you were distracted. You were on your phone or something. I was like, come and have a look at this. Look what's happened to me.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And you were like, what? What's that? And I stopped. I started like showing it off.
I was like, are you in a building?
I was almost proud of the game. I was like, look, they finally managed to get something wrong. I can't believe it.
Mess it up.
Yeah. Oh, and talking about the visuals, there is one scene that's amazing where Finn takes her Tinkerer mask off and it's just lit perfectly. They've obviously put a lot of time and energy into that scene, and it's just lit so well. And it doesn't look photorealistic at all, but it just looks so defined and so rich, and you're just like, wow, it was a breathtaking scene, the way this human face was lit up. and it was computer graphics to a degree that I just never thought I'd see in my lifetime. It was just, it looked like better than most movies. It was so cool, and it made me feel, I don't know, there's a certain kind of, when a game resonates with you so heavily, you feel a kind of a kinship with it. You feel a kinship with the people that designed it, and it makes you want to learn more about the character and the like the comic books and that kind of stuff. And I actually went into Waterstones, the local bookshop, and I picked up a Spider-Man graphic novel, and I was like, oh, should I buy it or not? It was 20 quid, and I was like, oh, but I'm still toying with it, and it's this kind of separate story. Anyway, what it is not important. The point is like it made me want to go have more Spider-Man, you know. And I always loved the character. I loved Spider-Man as a kid and even as a teenager. And it's kind of reignited that love of Spider-Man through this entirely new character who is, I think, just more representative of modern times, you know. Now I think we've covered it all.
I think so.
All right, cool. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the Made to Game podcast, formerly the Married to Gaming podcast. And we've been talking Spider-Man Miles Morales. Me and Sam are intending to put one of these out like once a week, once every couple of weeks. If you're enjoying it and you want to support us, there are lots of ways in which you can do that. So we have the podcast itself, which you can just subscribe to and leave us a nice review if you want to. If you want to come over and chat with us on Discord, I run a Discord server called Puck HQ, and you'll find a link to that in the episode description. We have a Patreon set up where you can support us for $3. It's set to dollars at the moment. Like, we're in the UK, but like Patreon does the job for you or convert to your currency. So wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning or afternoon or evening. We've been Made to Game. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.